All right, everybody, we're going to get going. I know we're a little bit beyond schedule here, so without further ado, if members could grab their seats that are going to stay. Bud, if you could lead us with the pledge. Well, good morning, everybody. I am filling in for Chairman Kale today, and happy to do so on this very important topic that I think we're trying to finally highlight. It's something we've talked about for years, but when we start looking at this, what RGGI really is, it's an energy tax, and it's something that the Wolf administration started, and it appears that the Shapiro administration isn't backing away from. So we have a good testimony today. This is kind of the kicking off the start of a couple hearings where we're going to focus in on this energy tax that's still in the governor's budget and something that we have to be mindful of, something we need to fight back on. And this hearing is the start of highlighting why this will cripple Pennsylvania. So before we get into this, I want to allow the members to go introduce themselves here. And I don't know if there's anybody online. We'll get to that point here in a second. So. Craig, I know he's sitting down, but Craig, why don't you introduce yourself first?
I'd be glad to, Chairman. Good morning, everyone. Craig Statz, representing the 145th Legislative District in the great county of Bucks.
Good morning, Representative Rigby, 71st District, Cambria, and Somerset counties.
Good morning, Representative Kathy Rapp, 65th Legislative District, Olive Warren, Force, and parts of Crawford County.
Good morning, Representative Eric Nelson, Westmoreland County.
Good morning, Representative Dallas Gephardt, Churchill and Cambridge County, 73rd District.
Good morning, Representative Jake Bennett, Erie, Pennsylvania, District 4.
From the 50th District, Greene County and parts of Washington, where we invite you to come home, go big, and have a ball, State Rep Bud Cook.
Good morning, Mike Armanini, 75th District, Elk and Clearfield counties.
Good morning, Representative Dave Zimmerman, 99th District, Northeast Lancaster, and Southern Berks.
Good morning, Joe Adams, 139th District, representing Pike and Wayne counties.
And I don't believe anybody's online yet, but I know members will be coming and going, and we have Representative Lee James over here as well. I don't, Lee, if you'd like to, yep. And much like usual quick session days, is there'll be a lot of members coming and going, so I really appreciate the members that are here for being here on this important topic. So I kind of previewed a little bit why we're here, but why are we here? We're here because Governor Shapiro is continuing to push RGGI, or what we like to call the energy tax. Take it from him in April of 2022. He's kind of been all over the place on this, but in 2022 he said, let me be very clear. Energy policy for me must pass the test for protecting jobs, lowering consumer prices, and addressing climate change. It is not clear to me that RGGI meets that test. Now, flash forward to this year, and in his budget and the budget that the House Democrats passed last week, RGGI is still included in there. In fact, $663 million is proposed to be coming from that RGGI tax, that energy tax, in the governor's budget. Now, if you ask me, anytime we're increasing revenue in this state, it's a tax. Call it whatever you want, tax credits, whatever you want, it's a tax. It's a tax on consumers, and that doesn't even take into account all of the downward rate impacts this is going to have on Pennsylvanians as well. So today with us, we have some great testifiers that are going to talk about how it's going to impact business. Don't take it from us. Let's hear from the industry. Let's hear from the folks this is actually going to address. And today with us, we have Greg Moreland from NFIB, the National Federation of Independent Businesses, and also David Taylor from the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association. Gentlemen, thank you for being here. Thank you for testifying, and thank you for highlighting this important topic. And you guys are quite experts on this, and so is your industry. So without further ado, Greg, you'll kick it off, please.
Well, thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be with you here on this Monday morning. Greatly appreciate the opportunity to talk about the energy tax and what the impact is going to be on small business. I'm Greg Moreland. I'm the Pennsylvania State Director with the National Federation of Independent Business. Represent about 13,000 small independent businesses all throughout the Commonwealth and in all different sectors. We are a national organization, nonprofit, nonpartisan, represent about 300,000 business owners nationwide. We have a footprint in all 50 states and in Washington, D.C. as well. We've been in existence for 80 years. 2023 is our 80th year anniversary, and so we have a long track record here in the United States of representing the smallest of the small businesses. With that said, NFIB is referred to as the voice of small business, and we remain committed to holding elected officials accountable for campaign promises made during the last election cycle. Every morning, I walk over to the Capitol, just like this morning, and I pass by a big, beautiful window with a quote on it. Quite honestly, it's a wonderful quote. The quote reads, "I have real concerns about the impact RGGI will have on consumer prices and hurting families." NFIB shares the exact same sentiment as the gentleman who made that comment, Governor Josh Shapiro. Far too often on the campaign trail, elected officials make statements of how big of a supporter they are of the small business community. Everyone loves the small businesses when they're up for election. The problem is that NFIB tracks legislation and how elected officials vote. What we tend to find is oftentimes the words spoken on the campaign trail does not match up with the votes taken on the floor of the General Assembly. As a reminder, NFIB is a nonpartisan organization, member-driven, unlike some other organizations throughout the nation. NFIB and the small business community are not giving up on the promises that Governor Shapiro made during his gubernatorial campaign, in which he stated he would consider removing Pennsylvania from RGGI. NFIB recognizes Governor Shapiro is a much different executive than his predecessor, and the small business community is appreciative of that. We have not and will not give up hope that Governor Shapiro recognizes the unique challenges faced by our Main Street businesses. Business owners continue to call inflation their top business problem, lamenting the cost of increases for inputs, i.e. inventory, supplies, labor, energy, etc., which compel them to raise their selling prices to cover the costs. Overall, owners are not optimistic about 2023 as sales and business conditions are expected to deteriorate. Owners will focus on their businesses and do their best to deal with the fallout from the pandemic and other uncertainties in a year of slow growth and still persistent inflation. Inflation remains well above the Fed's 2% target, and the Fed has raised interest rates 10 times already, and potentially an 11th time this week. This means it's more expensive for owners to borrow money for capital outlays and discourages owners from taking risks to grow their businesses and hire new employees. Pennsylvania is unlike any other state that has joined RGGI, and the Commonwealth possesses resources all others in RGGI do not. Yet policymakers continue to set forth policies and proposals that negatively affect the business climate, while at the same time stating that they would like to make the Commonwealth more competitive. You cannot have it both ways. You cannot continue to threaten or tax our business owners at higher rates and stand there and say, we are open for business. In looking at Governor Shapiro's RGGI working group, the governor set forth a three-pronged test which RGGI must meet, or the group must present an alternative to the governor. NFIB does not believe that the RGGI proposal meets any of the three prongs. Does RGGI reduce carbon emissions? No. Does RGGI protect and create jobs? No. Does RGGI protect the consumer? No. It's striking, and I don't know in what world, we can tax businesses and ultimately end up with lower costs on consumers. I did hear a report from Fox 43 this morning. They highlighted on their news channel that there are reports out there that RGGI could lower costs on consumers. I don't see how that is even possible if you are going to tax an entity at over $600 million in a year, as if those costs are not going to roll downhill to the business owner and then roll down further to the consumer. Alternatively, the governor should be looking at states that have similarities to the Commonwealth, such as West Virginia, Ohio, and Virginia, which, let me remind you, just removed themselves from RGGI last week. You can't compare apples to oranges and tout the similarities. When the unions and their employees sued to strike down the $5.8 billion RGGI carbon tax regulation and protect their jobs, then Attorney General Shapiro refused to defend RGGI on its merits. This required then Governor Wolf to hire outside counsel. It happens that he hired a firm with a long time track record of working with Constellation Energy and Exelon, both of which are enormous RGGI supporters. And now they happen to be working alongside the governor. I'll be honest, this is all maddening for the small business owner. Many residents in this Commonwealth voted for Governor Shapiro because they found him genuine, moderate in his political beliefs, and a man of his word. Forcing the Commonwealth to join a multi-state initiative which will have absolutely no positive impact on the Commonwealth, on the environment, the businesses, consumers, and does not protect jobs would seem to fly in the face of his campaign promises and the principles for which the majority of Pennsylvanians voted for. And FIB members care about the energy sources that are reliable, effective, clean, and cheap, because it directly affects their ability to survive as a business. And FIB members also believe in personal freedom of choice. In Pennsylvania, you can choose the company that generates your home or your business's electricity, also known as the electric supplier. This means that if you have the power to choose to switch between competing suppliers that offer the lowest price, the best price, or provide the specific service that you want. If you're looking for all renewables, you can go out there and you can actually make that change and select that. If you don't have electricity at some point during the day, though, you might want to reconsider. Recently, I had an op-ed published in multiple outlets entitled, "Small Businesses Need Affordable Energy." In it, let me just briefly read you a few comments. Here in Pennsylvania, we are uniquely situated to be the solution to powering our lives and livelihoods affordably, effectively, and efficiently. Thanks to the Commonwealth's prolific natural gas reserves, Pennsylvania is now one of the leading natural gas producing states in the country, second to only Texas. Natural gas has bolstered the state's diverse energy portfolio. As natural gas exploration and extraction has grown, Pennsylvania residents and businesses have benefited through lower energy costs and increased economic activity. By breathing new life into a once economically stagnant communities, the industry supported a boon of downstream opportunities and helped to grow cottage industries. Niche markets and businesses have developed to help support the industry. Additionally, there have been positive impact on ancillary businesses. In new drilling areas, restaurants, hotels, mom and pop shops have seen increased activity and a boost in sales. And within this bustle, increase in natural gas use has also been environmentally beneficial by significantly lowering greenhouse emissions. With that said, how will RGGI affect small businesses? I think I've alluded to it before in my testimony, but let me just be pretty clear here. The answer isn't as complex as some may think. Business owners will pass on increased costs to consumers, continuing to negatively affect inflation. They will cut hours or employees. They may even stop offering benefits they currently offer because they simply cannot afford them anymore. And if they can't afford them anymore, they're likely nearing going out of business. And do we want our communities to be full of big box stores, or do we want to keep the fabric of our communities together by offering our small businesses the opportunity to have clean, efficient, natural gas at a low price for their business? In closing, I've often looked around this building and asked myself, what are we doing here? What's going on? Over the last few weeks, I've asked myself this question more times than I would care to admit. There are elected officials in this building that think assessing a 30% increase in energy costs is a wonderful idea and that it will have no economic impact on consumers or businesses. Those same folks have signed on to a co-sponsor memo for legislation that increases the minimum wage to $21. $21. That's $43,000 a year for the lowest paid worker. Also, you have some in this building, and maybe one on this committee, that feels that small businesses should be mandated to participate in the state-run auto IRA program. It's frightening how some officials, elected officials, it's either, I don't know if they don't understand what it takes to run a business on the day-to-day operations, the responsibilities, the cost to a small business owner. Yet, when on the campaign trail, they're the first to claim small business support. Not everyone can work a 4-day work week, work remotely from their couch, and make $100,000 coming out of high school. It's just simply not a reality. Let's stop trying to appease the Sierra Club and start training workers to make their maximum compensation rather than artificial minimum wage. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Moreland. And Mr. Taylor, please.
Marvelous, thank you. Thank you, Vice Chairman Ecker and members of the committee. I'm David N. Taylor, President and CEO of the Pennsylvania Manufacturers Association, the statewide trade group representing the people who make things here in the Commonwealth. And as an aside, just wanted to thank Greg Moreland, our friends at NFIB. About 80% of Pennsylvania's manufacturers are considered small businesses, and we are always proud to stand with our allies from NFIB. In every way that matters, energy is life. Our manufacturing sector, which employs 500,000 Pennsylvanians, creates $100 billion in value every year. It depends on abundant, reliable, affordable energy. Maximizing domestic energy production should be a top priority for all of Pennsylvania's leaders and decision makers. Pennsylvania is the #1 exporter of electricity in America. We power the grid. If the RGGI scheme is not thwarted, the new electricity tax will force the immediate closure of our remaining coal-fired electricity plants and older natural gas-fired plants. These facilities represent billions of dollars of critical infrastructure and a significant portion of our generation capacity. If the furnaces at those plants are allowed to cool, they will then warp, crack, and shatter, destroying these assets while placing significant strains on our already fragile power grid. The RGGI electricity tax is exactly the wrong approach to take, 180 degrees wrong. Pennsylvania's coal-fired electricity facilities not only contribute to our total output, but they also use a Pennsylvania resource that supports Pennsylvania mining jobs. The plants in question are in full compliance with DEP and EPA standards. There's nothing wrong with them. The United States is the world's largest economy and is the second largest emitter of carbon dioxide at 13% and dropping. China is the world's second largest economy and is the largest emitter of carbon dioxide at 30% and rising. Again, more than double, moving in the opposite direction. The US moving lower, China rising higher. China is expanding its consumption of coal for electricity generation, bringing many new coal-fired power plants online, negating all other global reductions in carbon emissions. Snuffing out our much cleaner coal-fired electricity plants is foolhardy in the extreme. The RGGI plan only makes sense if its goal is to stifle U.S. energy production, cripple American industry, kill off U.S. jobs, and bleed U.S. consumers with higher costs for food, fuel, and utilities. PJM Interconnection has voiced concern about the integrity of the electric grid if existing plants are retired. In a letter written in February, PJM's Board of Managers said, quote, "We believe the healthy reserve margins we enjoy now cannot be taken for granted into the future. Energy policies and market forces have and could further expedite the retirement of existing generation resources faster than the new resources are able to come online." Pennsylvania only barely escaped blackouts during the winter storm in December. We are on a collision course with reality if we don't defend our plants today by rejecting the unconstitutional RGGI tax. Homer City Generation Station is now scheduled to close in July, thanks to the new burden of the RGGI tax. Pennsylvania's diverse energy portfolio provides the baseload capacity to power our industries. Glass is made with natural gas-fired ovens that reach 3,100 degrees. To make steel, metallurgical coal is turned to coke to derive metallic iron from iron ore. Our life science industries use natural gas to power their chemical reactions and natural gas liquids throughout their processes. Our re-emerging plastics industry is driven by the synergy between natural gas liquids as feedstock and natural gas as fuel. The RGGI tax will drive energy-intensive manufacturers out of Pennsylvania, and our fear is that this could drive these industries overseas, further disrupting our already fragile supply chains and distribution networks. Through several recent crises, we should have already learned how vitally important these supply chains are to our national security. Because Pennsylvania is a major producer of American energy, decisions in Harrisburg have national and global implications. Anything that diminishes Pennsylvania energy production weakens America. There should be no further delay for Pennsylvania to reject RGGI, and we respectfully request Governor Shapiro to withdraw our Commonwealth immediately. Thank you very much, and we'll be glad to do our best to answer your questions.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. And members, as you have questions, just let me know. I'll start out here to get things kicked off. So we talk about, as House Republicans, we talk about our keystone commitment, our commitment to the Commonwealth. And two of those pillars are a thriving economy and an affordable living. And Mr. Moreland, you kind of alluded to it this morning, but Fox 43 did a report kind of highlighting this energy tax. But they also cited two reports, one of which said energy taxes wouldn't be impacted at all. Another said they could possibly go down, which to me just seems completely crazy. The IFO did a report a number of years ago on RGGI and on this energy tax and said that energy rates could quadruple. So the Independent Fiscal Office, which I think we all value as an independent agency which provides pretty good information to the General Assembly, says this is going to quadruple rates. I don't know about me, but I know my constituents don't call me and ask me for higher energy rates. They don't call and ask me for higher energy tax. So from your guys' perspective, and you've highlighted this pretty well in your testimony, what impact, if RGGI is not removed from the table from the governor's budget, what impact will this ultimately have on Pennsylvania businesses?
Yeah, thank you for that question, Mr. Chairman. Like I said in my testimony, the prices will roll downhill, right? You stop on the way in to get that cup of coffee right now, and it's, $3, $3.50, right? Well, you start assessing higher energy costs, you start raising labor costs, you start assessing more regulations on small business. All of those have costs on our small business owners, and they only have one place to go with those costs, and that's to roll them down to the consumer, right? And so how much is that cup of coffee worth to you? $7, $8, $9? Because if you keep raising costs on small businesses, that's what you're going to end up with. You're going to end up with $15 hamburgers and $8 cups of coffee. And so, assessing quadrupling of energy costs, really, truly, at the end of the day, affects the lower income individuals in this Commonwealth the most, unfortunately, right? Those are the folks that don't have the money today to pay their energy bills, right? And we have programs out there right now to assist some of them, right? So what are we going to do to help those folks? Not just our small businesses, but let's think about the folks that don't have the money today to pay. And as Mr. Taylor alluded to, many small businesses are high energy, right? They are energy intensive businesses. They make things, right? They're not the consumer energy prices that you go home and you get your $120, $150 bill. No. These have commas in them, right? And if you're going to raise that cost significantly, I mean, you're basically telling them to pack up shop, move to West Virginia, move to Ohio, move to another place that's welcoming them with open arms, because they're not going to want to stay here in the Commonwealth.
Well, I mean, again, in the exact same spirit, Mr. Moreland is correct, especially that lower income Pennsylvanians pay a larger percentage of their household budget on energy and utilities, and so this affects those folks and their households directly. But again, talking about manufacturing is the engine that drives the economy. It's the sector that adds the most value. It's the sector that has the strongest multiplier effect on job creation, down the supply chain and out the distribution network. And because it adds the most value, it's the sector that has the best wages and benefits in the marketplace. So manufacturing depends on energy in enormous volumes. As I said, reliable and affordable energy. And so raising energy prices is going to raise the cost of everything. And, we saw this in the 1970s. And again, the idea at this moment that it would be a policy choice to further restrict or depress domestic energy production is completely contrary to the well-being of our citizens. Pennsylvania in particular, with the enormous opportunity that we have with untold trillions of recoverable cubic feet of natural gas, we need to get this to market. And I would hope that this would be a consensus point, that a pro-production agenda for Pennsylvania energy benefits all of us, employers, workers, and consumers. And Mr. Chairman, if I may, just very quickly, the claim that was made that somehow RGGI would lower energy prices is such complete nonsense that it deserves just a few moments of exploration. It defies common sense and the laws of economics to say that if you restrict supply of something, that you will thereby lower the price. That's, again, everybody knows if there's less of something and you don't change demand, the thing that people want is going to get more expensive. Maybe the point in the exercise is to try to diminish demand, to try to re-primitivize our society, and to make people live at a lower standard of living. I would also say that the claims that the RGGI will allow for the spending of hundreds of millions of dollars on pet projects is proof that it is unconstitutional, that RGGI is not a fee that merely covers the cost of administration, but rather it is a tax. And again, this claim proves that point. And third of all, I would say that the Democrats are in the majority. If this is a priority for them, bring it up for a vote, and we'll see how things go from there.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Turning to members now, Representative Nelson. And before we get there, I just want to note that Representative Park Wetling has joined us. Representative Nelson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you both for your testimony. Specifically, earlier in your response, Mr. Taylor, you had mentioned about lower-income Americans, and I am a believer that even low-income Americans should have an opportunity for retirement plan, just to correct the record for my good friend. And as an owner of multiple businesses, initially setting up an employee is pretty quick and easy and moves forward from there. But manufacturing is not the lowest income Americans. Manufacturing are strong, good-paying jobs that have benefits, pensions, retirement.
Yes, sir.
Some outstanding opportunities for things to be made here, where it is made cleaner and more environmentally sound. I really appreciate you mentioning China, that now is on pace. I think in 2022, they permitted 2 new coal plants a week in that country, and they now make more, I think, than 6 times the entire rest of the world combined. China generates coal electricity. Back here in Pennsylvania, RGGI isn't new to the United States. It's new to us. But can you touch on what we've seen has happened to heavy energy-consuming manufacturers in some of those other RGGI states as those higher taxes and operating expenses have come in? What has been the consequence? Because this isn't an experiment. It's somewhat of a proven pathway.
Right, and that's a great point, Representative Nelson. And I think it's notable, and I think Mr. Moreland mentioned this earlier, that the other RGGI states are not energy-producing states. They're energy-consuming states, and actually they get their power from us. And so this is, this is uncharted territory to have a major American energy-producing state to take on this new carbon tax that directly attacks domestic energy production. So, I mean, in New York, New Jersey, Massachusetts, in those states, you've seen a long-term, decline over time in energy-intensive jobs. So I can't speak directly to the numbers, but this is an entirely different issue for us because we as a state are so very different from them. And also, let the record show, Susquehanna County, Pennsylvania is the #1 natural gas producing county in America. Not Texas, not Oklahoma, not Louisiana. It's here in Pennsylvania in the far northeast. we can't get that clean burning Pennsylvania natural gas a couple of 100 miles to the major East Coast population centers because of idiotic policies in other states. In Massachusetts, most of the energy consumption there for household energy is home heating oil or wood-fired stoves, both of which emit much more carbon than natural gas. And again, it's the sort of thing that points to this RGGI issue not really being about the environment, but being about something else, which again points me back to what is the purpose of this? It's to snuff out American energy production.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Representative Cook.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And I want to thank you both for your testimony today. It's sort of, I feel, for me personally, preaching to the choir. As an elected official, I always struggle with what to say, what people need to hear, as opposed to what they want to hear. And from Greene County in southwestern Pennsylvania, the heart of the energy industry here in the Commonwealth, I want to extend an invitation. And I'm a firm believer in MBA and business management by walking around. I want to extend to the governor, the lieutenant governor, and anyone in this administration to come to Greene County, to go to a coal mine, to go to a gas well, talk to these people. I also want them to visit the small businesses that all this impacts on. This is taking it from the macro RGGI perspective down to the micro and those people. We've had great success in bringing people out in former administrations to actually see what's going on the ground. Also, I want them to see the fishing streams, the trout, the sportsman's club, the lifestyle that these people, that this energy industry supports. It's a beautiful place to live. And if we go through with RGGI, this will significantly impact and possibly kill all these people. So again, this is my invitation to the governor, the lieutenant governor, anyone in their administration. We'd love to take you on one of our small bus tours and introduce you to these people. So again, appreciate your efforts. We're all in on this.
Well, and if I may just respond to that, I mean, it's important, again, for our leaders and decision makers to have that first-person experience because, you know, as with manufacturing, it's really easy to think of, you know, mining as it was in the 1940s rather than as it is today, which is extremely advanced, deploys a lot of technology, especially for worker safety and protection. And so when somebody who is not familiar with those industries goes and sees the technology that's being deployed, seeing how advanced and modern it really is, it changes people's attitudes. So I hope that more folks take you up on that offer, sir.
Thank you, Representative Cook. And before we get to the next question, I want to just acknowledge that Representative Cabell and Representative Struzzi have entered the room. So thanks for being here, gentlemen. Chairwoman Rapp.
Thank you, Chairman Ecker, and thank you, Mr. Taylor, Mr. Moreland, for being here today. Very informative. Served on environmental resources and energy for 18 years, and this has been a concern of mine for a very long time. Last summer, I had the pleasure of taking my grandsons and other family. We did the naval tour down in Norfolk, and it was really interesting to see all the ships. But one of the things that you see also in the piers in Norfolk is all the coal that is being exported to China and North Korea. And we know that they are using that coal to build coal plants, and also they're using our resources to definitely build up their military. It's very worrisome that people in this country are not in tune to what's really going on in China and the threat they are, not just militarily, but resources-wise. And Mr. Taylor, you mentioned in your testimony the remerging plastics industry from the natural gas liquids. And one of the hearings that we did last year in Environmental Resources and Energy is we did a combined hearing on the natural resources in manufacturing and in the healthcare industry. So in the healthcare industry, people think of plastic as maybe your plastic bottle, but they don't really connect the dots to everything that we use that is plastic. And in healthcare, it's from your syringes to your IV lines to your IV bags, all of your imaging machines. Next time you go to the office or the doctor's office or in your hospital, just take a look around. Everything is made from a plastic. And, you know, I saw on our voting schedule that we actually have a bill mandating, I think it's paper straws. When you get a paper straw, it's usually wrapped in plastic. I appreciate you bringing this up, the plastics industry, because I don't think people really understand or connect the dots as to how much of our economy is really based on oil, gas, and coal. And to trade that off to solar and wind, especially solar, it takes an enormous landmass, and where I live, it just isn't going to work. But if you could maybe expound a little bit more on, I know this will increase, you know, the cost of health care. If the governor, and there are many people in this state and other states who want to totally do away with fossil fuels. So if you could just expound a little bit more on that, maybe the cost, not just in our electric bills, but in every product we use, because almost every product uses plastic.
Thank you very much, Representative Rapp. So in the Marcellus Shale natural gas play, in different parts of the Commonwealth, the gas comes out of the ground differently. And again, the Marcellus play is New York, Pennsylvania, Ohio, West Virginia, and the westernmost part of Maryland. New York State and Maryland have bans on developing that energy, so it's just the 3 states. In the far southwest of Pennsylvania, Washington and Greene County, and then in southeastern Ohio and the northern part of West Virginia, that is where the natural gas is harvested with abundant amounts of other related chemicals, butane, pentane, propane, ethane, and that these are feedstocks for petrochemical manufacturing. The new facility out in Beaver County, the Pennsylvania chemicals by the Shell Corporation, that they turn ethane into ethylene into polyethylene, and those polyethylene pellets can then be used to make every kind of plastic, styrofoam, rubber, paint, glaze, coating, solvent, and adhesive, all the things that go into making all of the products that the rest of us, you know, consume and rely upon and depend on every day. And so yes, the importance of those chemical inputs, whether it's plastic or styrofoam, it's things like antimicrobial and bacterial coatings for medical devices and for patient care to try to prevent the contagion of hospital-acquired infections. Like all of those things, in ways that the average person doesn't even think about, all those things depend on that kind of petrochemical manufacturing. And because of the way that particular resource is geographically located, if we do things wrong in Harrisburg to make it more difficult, to make it less economical, that those businesses will go to Ohio and West Virginia. Ohio just recently declared natural gas to be a green fuel. So, I mean, we're already behind, as it were, in that competition. And again, these manufacturing jobs that could and should come to southwestern Pennsylvania from petrochemical manufacturing, including plastics, we're going to miss out. And the opportunity is so enormous. It really is, I don't know what you call it, policy malpractice, to not make the most of it to help our citizens, to help broader prosperity for our people. And again, it's up to us to make it happen.
Thank you, Mr. Taylor. Certainly, Mr. Moreland can weigh in if he wants. And thank you, Representative Ecker.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Representative Kephart.
Thank you, gentlemen, for being here today. You know, I'm proud to introduce the bill with Representative Struzzi to require legislative approval to implement this energy tax. You know, I agree with you, Mr. Taylor. You said earlier that we should bring this up for a vote, but I have a feeling that it'll probably get about 130 no vote or votes to end this, because that's what it got before when it was brought up last session. So you know, that's a bipartisan opposition to this thing. So you know, I would encourage Leader Bradford to go ahead and bring this up for a vote if it's such a wise idea. You know, if it's so wonderful of idea. Anyhow, I just you know, one of the things I hear about this is some people are concerned about, you know, this is going to lead to all this pollution and stuff like that, you know, and I just want to know, is any of the criteria air pollutants by the EPA, designated by the EPA, is any of them regulated in this?
No, they are not. And you know, and again, this is part of the mindset of the Radical Greens, where they will assert that any business entity that has emissions above zero is a, quote, polluter, unquote, regardless of the time, energy, effort, money, and manpower spent on being in compliance with the strictest EPA and DEP standards. So, you know, again, as I said, our sector employs over 500,000 Pennsylvanians. That core manufacturing activity sustains millions of additional Pennsylvania jobs through supply chains, distribution networks, vendors of industrial services. If you lose that core activity on the plant floor, all the rest of that dries up and blows away. So the only way you get zero emissions from industry is to have zero industrial activity, which means giving up all of those family-sustaining jobs, hollowing out all of our communities that would lose their factories, all of the things with our quality of life, the availability of the products that those manufacturers make. So, I mean, it's a kind of madness that you have people asserting that they would rather shut down businesses here at home and purchase things from China, where those products are 3 to 4 times more carbon intensive than the same product made in the US, where, of course, the American-made product sustains American communities, American workers, American family, the tax base in our local communities all across our country. It really is, I mean, the idea that we're going to replace what works with what sounds good is a catastrophic mistake.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, oh, did you have something to say, Greg? Sorry. Mr.
Go ahead,
Morgan.
I'll follow you up, Representative.
Sorry,
No,
I
you're fine.
cut you off. I apologize.
You're fine.
I just was, you know, I'm always curious when I hear about all this pollution that's going to be generated by this and so forth, but none of them are regulated by this. No sulfur dioxide, no nitrous oxide, no particulate matter. None of that's regulated by this.
And it denies the great success story of the reductions that the U.S. has made in emissions, with Pennsylvania leading the way. Like, again, as a little kid, I remember that every car on the road would belch black smoke into the air. Like by every measurable standard, the air is cleaner, the water is cleaner, even as our population has grown and our economy has grown. So I don't understand why people won't take yes for an answer. And just one last point from me before I give things to Mr. Moreland is that it's important to note that every single interstate compact to which Pennsylvania is a party has been approved by the General Assembly. And again, that is, I think it's important that the governance of our people comes from only those Pennsylvania authorities who are accountable to Pennsylvania voters.
Absolutely. NFIB could not agree more with what Mr. Taylor just said. You know, if you want to assess a tax on the residents of this Commonwealth, then you should run it through the elected officials in which most closely represent those individuals. You know, Reggie kind of acts as if we have walls or a bubble around Pennsylvania, right? Last week, I remember the smoke, the haze in the air, right? That didn't originate in Pennsylvania. A couple months ago, I remember there was a train derailment close to the Pennsylvania line. That didn't originate in Pennsylvania, yet the wind blows west to east, right? We act as if we're going to be the savior of the world with this program, and it is patently false. Patently false.
Well, thank you, gentlemen, again for being here. You know, the governor in his budget address, he said there were certain non-negotiables. Well, I'd like to make it clear this is non-negotiable for me, this energy tax on Pennsylvanians. So, thank you.
Well said, Representative Kephart. Representative Zimmerman.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman Eckert. Mr. Moreland, Mr. Taylor, thanks for your testimony this morning. So when we work on law and policy, always a little concerned about making winners and losers. And both of you outlined very well how small business, manufacturing, consumers, coal industry are all losers in a RGGI. So having said that, who are the winners? What's a win with RGGI? Is there any? And who might that be, and what might that be?
The state of West Virginia and the state of Ohio. Because the companies that would have located here, the Renovo, companies that would have located here in the Commonwealth are now going to do a cost-benefit analysis. And they're going to determine that doing business in Pennsylvania is unaffordable, and they're going to go to a place where they're welcomed with open arms and policies that welcome them and treat them well and treat their employees well and support them, not attack them, not threaten their jobs, not threaten the resources that they have there.
Well, Representative Zimmerman, I would say that here in the Commonwealth, that the winners would be the nuclear industry. And this is why you see their involvement in support of the carbon tax, because it's a carbon tax and not a spent plutonium tax. And so, again, we believe that Pennsylvania's competitive market for electricity has helped consumers, especially the industrial consumers, which, again, in turn, power our whole economy. And so I look at RGGI as being a backdoor nuke bailout. It's obviously also being deployed to try to bend the curve on the cost of the boutique, intermittent, fashionable fuel sources that the radical Greens tend to like with, whether it's solar panels or wind turbines or hamster wheels or whatever it is that they've come up with. And so again, if these technologies work, they should survive the rigors of the marketplace. Actually pampering them delays the breakthrough of new technologies. So, we believe in competition in the marketplace, and, again, as manufacturers, dependent on large volumes of energy, having it be affordable, let's see who can produce. And if somebody produces, if somebody develops cold fusion tomorrow, I'll be in favor of that. But right now, looking at Pennsylvania, looking at our assets for domestic production, the assets that we can control, that Pennsylvania natural gas and coal shouldn't be, they shouldn't be punished. And it's completely contrary to the public good to try to snuff out or stifle energy production from domestic sources.
Yeah. Thank you very much, because I really believe that we haven't said enough about who the winners would be in a RGGI approval. So thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Representative Banta.
Thank you. Thank you, gents, for being here. I'm going to try to make this short. We got an engagement to show up here right quick after this on the 2A. But while I'm here, I just want to say to you guys from firsthand experience, everybody in this room, in 1980 or so, I was in high school, and the gas industry came to my farm, which is 167 acres, and they drilled 4 wells. That turned around and gave my father and several other farmers in that community $20,000 checks or so. And they turned around and put that money right back into the economy. and it was a direct, reaction of what natural gas did. I went into service, and I saw a lot of poor nations, and the poorer the nation, the dirtier it was. So when you take from the economy, you take from the keeping it clean. So when I came home, I actually worked for about 8 years in the oil and gas industry. And I will say that it's natural coming right up out of the ground. For you guys who have never been out there working in the gas field, it burns clean. It comes right up out of the ground, and it's going to help Pennsylvania. Reggie's going to do nothing but hurt our economy, and that's going to hurt the people. I just want to finish by saying that, the direction the governor and these guys are going is not going to help the economy. In every country that I ever visited, again, the poorer the nation, the dirtier it was. So they're not going to help us here. Can you guys just expand quickly about the impact that natural gas has had in Pennsylvania with this history? Thank you.
Well, I mean, certainly that many family farms, especially on the northern tier, you hear stories about how, having mineral rights and lease payments has helped save the family farm, and to keep family farms in possession of those families that have cultivated it for so many years. There's an interesting point because, yes, that more primitive societies, less advanced societies, that because for them it's a fight for survival, that, yeah, they're going to use whatever is at hand, and that they're going to deal with environmental consequences down the line. That just tends to happen historically. But there's another point that I want to make. I had the privilege of going with DCED to Australia in 2019 because they have natural gas plays that they've discovered in the Northern Territory, the far north of Australia, the most distant and tropical part. And that it was as an American, I didn't stop to think, because Australia is part of the British Commonwealth, that the mineral rights belong to the Crown, that the landowner does not get royalty payments or lease payments. Those things go to now His Majesty's government. And so that for us in America to have those property rights, so that on our land that we can have a contract and be a partner in business with the energy company, with the development of that resource, bring it to the surface to benefit human beings. This is a real blessing for us as Americans, and it's just one more example where, oftentimes I don't think folks realize how blessed that we are to be citizens of this great country.
My father and many other farmers around there got an 8th royalty, and I know for a fact in 1980, $20,000, a couple checks for that, they helped us survive. Thank you.
Thank you, Representative Banta. And before we continue, I want to acknowledge Representative Kate Klunk, Representative Rob McCurry, and the good chairman have all appeared. Thank you. Still my show, apparently. So, Representative Armanini.
Thank you, Chair Ecker, and thank you both for your comments today as how true are they. With my district being the birthplace of the powdered metal manufacturing industry, natural gas is a huge component in the manufacturing of these various components that supply all wide variety of industries. And with being in that industry myself for 30 plus years, knowing that natural gas is such a main expense, and I just see it very hard for that industry to survive in Pennsylvania if these costs are going to rise 30, 40, 50%. And my other concern is that a lot of these companies, like myself, were privately owned, and they've sold to corporations, which are not headquartered in Pennsylvania, and who also have multiple plants throughout the country. So I'm sure in their boardrooms they're already looking at, if this tax goes into effect, are we going to still manufacture in Pennsylvania where our energy costs are just going to exceed our way of being profitable? That's a main concern. And I think also, too, you mentioned with the minimum wage. I really don't know where these people are coming from on this minimum wage, because I know in the area, a worker starting out, say with no experience or anything, that worker is making around $45,000 to start, plus $10,000 in benefits. So you have a $55,000 a year job in rural Pennsylvania as a starting point for your career. So you know, like you've mentioned, I really don't know where they're coming up with this. And you know, when the governor gave his budget address, he used the word common sense several times throughout. Let's hope he keeps his common sense with this, and maybe he can put some of that common sense into the other side who are just coming up with this, which is just going to put us on a train wreck for the future of Pennsylvania. And I thank you for bringing this more aware to everyone, because we do need to focus on this, because this will be the beginning to the end of Pennsylvania truly being the keystone state of our nation. So I thank you both for all your comments.
Thank you, Representative Armanini. Representative Whiteling.
Hey, good morning. I just wanted to take a moment to publicly thank Greg for coming up to Mercer County and working with Rod Wilt and Penn Northwest to host we had a real nice NFIB roundtable discussion, and all the things you're talking about today, Greg, were certainly discussed. Some, you know, much more than others. Certainly the one regarding minimum wage. But again, just want to publicly thank you for making the trip up and working with us. And Dave, I also want to, you know, thank you too with your partners out of Erie. I used to represent part of West Erie County, now down in Mercer solely, and they've been wonderful to work with up in Erie County too. One of the other pieces I wanted to mention is the cogeneration plants. I know that that's one of the things we looked at when I was the chairman of the Joint Legislative Conservation Committee, and how, you know, RGGI may affect the cogeneration plants. I know that there's a carve-out in RGGI for that, but you know, according to what they had said about the carve-out in RGGI in a report that we did through the Joint Legislative Conservation Committee, that it would really affect their ability to produce energy, and you know, they're using spent coal piles and reducing those, and what that does economically and for the environment too is wonderful. So I just wanted to point that out, and thanks for allowing me to speak.
Thank you, Representative Whiteling. Any other questions? Representative Klunk.
Thank you, Chair Ecker. Thank you so much to the gentleman for joining us today. As the good gentleman David Taylor knows, I represent some of the world's largest snack food companies in the entire world. We make a lot in my district that you eat. One of the concerns that I've heard from my local manufacturers is, as they continue to expand, we're having issues with our grid locally. And I'm sure we are not the only ones throughout the state and the country that are having those same issues. Some of the concerns that I have, and I would love to hear from Mr. Taylor about this, what are you hearing from your manufacturers as we, you know, move to these new green, supposedly clean energy initiatives? What is that impact on the grid from a manufacturing perspective? Because my concern is, if we're having problems in my home community in bringing on additional manufacturing capabilities, what
that electricity cannot generate. And so we need natural gas and coal to not only as inputs for processes, but also, again, to reach that very high temperature point. By having government policy shift more of energy consumption away from coal and natural gas and to electricity, it's going to put a tremendous strain on the grid. The electricity grid that we all rely on has kind of been cobbled together over time. It's like, well, it's what we had plus a little more, and then we'll tack more on, and then we'll plug it into that system there. It really is rickety, which is why, you know, people lose power during storms. It should be much more resilient than that. It's critical infrastructure. It hasn't been modernized, hardened, upgraded the way that it should be. And yes, that an overemphasis on electrifying the economy is going to it's going to shift consumer consumption, and it's going to make that already fragile grid even more wobbly. We need to build out more transmission lines, and I mean that just needs to be part of our economy today with the natural growth in consumer demands, all of our home electronics and other things that are used to consume more energy, more electricity, excuse me. And so yeah, we are, when I talk about a collision course with reality, crashing the grid is a very, very real concern, and it almost happened on Christmas Eve last year.
Thank you, Chairman Klunk. And gentlemen, thank you for your testimony today. Thanks for answering our feedback. I think I'm required here now to let Chairman Kale have his comments, but I do appreciate you gentlemen for sharing your time. Chairman Kale.
Mr. Moreland, Mr. Taylor, thank you so much for coming here and testifying. I'm looking forward to watching the testimony and hearing what you have to say. I've heard both of you testify before on this subject, and I'm sure that it was fantastic as well today. Entering into this energy tax at this point in time in Pennsylvania's history is really a remarkable thing. Just as you mentioned, Mr. Taylor, we have a drive towards electrifying everything in this nation, in this Commonwealth, and here we are going to really hurt our ability to generate electricity. That's one reason, just one reason why this is bad policy. There are numerous reasons why. It destroys jobs. I was just meeting with a leadership of a building trade union before I was here, and that's why I was late, actually. And they had a graph that showed me how much more investment is happening right now in Ohio than here. We are getting our butts kicked by Ohio. We are getting our butts kicked by Ohio. And much of that development has been announced since we started talking about this energy tax. If we want to be competitive, with places like Ohio, with West Virginia, with job growth, with economic growth, we got to get out of this energy tax scheme. It makes zero sense as it relates to development, to growth, to economics. Obviously, jobs makes no sense for jobs. Places are shutting down. Thousands of union jobs are going to be lost because we're going into this energy tax. And I think this is an important point as well, something that needs to be mentioned every time we talk about this. It's also bad for our environment because the number one issue that we have, if carbon emissions is truly a concern of yours, the number one issue you're going to have is places like China and Russia manufacturing with zero regulations. We have to solve that problem. And if we want to limit the carbon emissions, we cannot keep driving up demand for them to continue to manufacture. This is a loser for our environment. It's a loser for our workforce. It's a loser for economic growth. It's a loser for our national security because we need to be encouraging extraction. We need to be encouraging development. We need manufacturing here. And what's remarkable to me is you hear House Democrats, you hear the governor talk about this being bad policy, about this not being the right time to do this. Yet the governor puts it in his budget. He puts funds from this energy tax in his budget. You hear all of the rhetoric, yet he hires a law firm to continue the appeal in court. So there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of people that understand that politically it's the right thing to say that we don't want this energy tax, yet here we are with the Shapiro energy tax. And right now, we need to end it, and we're going to keep fighting to end it, and that's why we're having a hearing coming up Friday, June 16th. It'll be in Dallas, Pennsylvania, to discuss our electric grid's reliability. and integrity, and how this energy tax will impact that as well. So, gentlemen, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. I truly appreciate it. Looking forward to hearing more about how this issue develops, and hopefully, as this fight carries on, we'll see victory and not go into this poor energy policy. Without further ado, I believe this hearing is adjourned. I don't have the gavel. He does, so if you want to hit it or you want to say something, it's your show.
Thanks, gentlemen.
Thank you very much.